Good morning, and thank you once again for joining me this Thursday on Voluntary Virtues. This is the Conversation with Kelly Diamond, episode 47. Okay, so as usual, there's some drama in the movement. Some kernels of corn have been misbehaving, and like everything, like everyone has an asshole and opinion. I'm just another asshole with an opinion. So here goes. I majored in linguistics, and I didn't realize how much I appreciated my major until much later. I mean, I enjoyed it while I was majoring in it and learning. The stuff I was learning was interesting, but looking back, I find a lot of why, my personality was suited for that major. I look at language, okay, and language is a system of rules without any real centralized enforcement. People just enforce it by themselves. I mean, Facebook is one of those lovely places where everyone lets you know when you're wrong, right? When you got it, when you're ungrammatical, when you've misspelled something, when you've switched up homonyms, they're there to tell you. But society has always been that way with language. That's the beauty of it, is that it indeed is a system of rules, though not hard and fast, because when you try to sit down and actually enumerate all the rules, you start to run into conundrums along the way. There are exceptions, there are exceptions, and there's no accounting for them other than to say they're an exception and put them aside and move on, which is essentially what linguistics does, is it sits you down and says, okay, create rules that will only generate perfectly grammatical sentences. That's what you're doing, essentially. But without a centralized anything, what you have a dictionary, I guess it just generally tells you, it tells you what the current accepted definitions of words are, and it tells you the etymology and the history of the word. But it doesn't necessarily, I don't know, it's just a code book, right? I mean, it's not like it jumps out and bites you in the ass when you're wrong. And people call each other out all the time on terms, so they can have a logical debate. And culture is a lot like that, right? Culture is a lot like that. If you go to Japan, there's certainly nothing immoral about wearing shoes in a house. And there's nothing immoral about standing your chopsticks up in a rice bowl. But it's culturally unacceptable, and you will be admonished in some way. Japan being so worried about offending everybody, and certainly not a very in-your-face culture, will probably be a little bit more PA about it. But they will say or do something. It's not okay. And culturally, they all kind of revolve around this. You don't do that. Kids are taught, foreigners are taught that you just don't. There's just certain things you don't do. Right? I mean, I think the superstition list in Japan is fairly long, but culturally, the mores that you violate, you're accountable for to the society. It's not criminal. Police aren't going to come and get you. You don't disappear in some Asian jail, never to be heard from again. There's no violence. But it's clear that that's not what you do. The United States doesn't have that same, I guess, regimen about culture. It's not as old. It doesn't have, and it has a myriad of cultures. And of course, the PC movement likes to try and be more populist about it than pluralistic, right? But there are certain things that I think generally people agree on. Generally, not all. When you go along the continuum from painfully immoral on one end to sainthood on the other, right? And there's everything in between. Morality has a pretty clear line. Philosophers have generally come up with a fairly clear line, and people generally know where that line is. Generally. I think the lines have been somewhat obscured by the state, but generally we know, right? I mean, chances are you could walk down the street and say, is murder okay? That means the premeditated taking of life with malice and forethought. Is that okay? Not killing in self-defense, right? Like, you actually plan it out and kill somebody. Is that okay? And generally, people say no. How about rape? Is rape okay? No. How about, can I break into your house and steal shit? No, it's not okay. Right. And I mean, I think you'll have larger numbers agreeing with you there, right, on those things. The people with some sort of moral defect will start to come up with ways to rationalize it. Generally, libertarians agree that things that aggress upon another person in some way, even fraud, is a violation of some sort of human right. So we don't mess with people's property. Right? And we're very clear on that, libertarians are. Right? They generally try to make it really clear. And a lot of it is predicated on property rights. I have a right to my property. And this is where, I agree. Right? And that it would naturally enforce itself, I think people would naturally enforce it and defend it on their own if given the opportunity. But then there's people like Chris Cantwell, right? And I think he wrote a piece on how it would be okay, or I don't know if he either wrote a piece or he had mentioned in a thread, one or the other, but he had talked about how he would be justified in killing somebody over a paperclip. He wasn't advocating that you do. I read the piece. I remember reading about it. And I read his words. His words were that that's not what he was advocating. It was that simply theft is theft, and I can defend my property by any means necessary. Right? So he would not be wrong, or at least he wouldn't be immoral, to kill somebody in an attempt to steal a paperclip. Of course, that was blown way out of proportion. He was trying to make a point in his own way. But it brings behavior to the forefront, doesn't it? It says, okay, we know that killing is generally wrong. Okay? Murder is wrong. And self-defense seems to be the out of that. The loophole, if you will, to killing somebody is, if it's done in self-defense, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing immoral about that. You're well within your rights to do that. Right? Being well within your rights is all well and good, but that's not to say that everybody's going to be able to rationalize it the same way. Okay? Maybe there are some people who are like, I'm not going to give it another thought. Somebody comes up to me, I'll fucking shoot them where they stand. They drop dead, I go back to breakfast. Right? I mean, there's people who might very well feel that way. And there's others who are like, I don't care what their intentions were, I just took a human life and I'm mortified by the idea. Right? So obviously people will interpret it and internalize it, and generally it will affect them differently, each person, people being individuals and all. And then you have everything else. Right? You have that side of morality, that side of the line of morality, the immoral side, and then you have everything afterwards. Right? And going back to the Cantwell point, I'm not wrong. I'm not immoral. That's true. But I dare say that there would be some who would say killing over a paperclip was an overreaction and probably unnecessary. Unless, of course, somebody held you up at gunpoint for said paperclip. But if somebody simply snuck over to your desk and took your paperclip, unarmed, with nothing more than your paperclip, and you shot them while in the act of stealing, there would be many who would probably say that is an extreme overreaction to the theft of a paperclip. I would probably be among those people. So yes, you can make the case, and you can play the angle. I'm not immoral. Yes, that's true. And A person who lives that way, who lives by that code of I'm not immoral, not to say I'm a good person, right? I'm just not immoral. The person who lives by that code makes a great neighbor, but not a great friend. Or a great person, for that matter. The reason why they're a great neighbor is because you know exactly where they stand. You know that this person will never kill you in your sleep. Right? They'll never break into your house. They live by a certain code. And that code is fairly black and white. And there's a few things that this person will just never do to you, so you know you're pretty much safe from the person. That's not to say that the person isn't an absolute asshole. Okay? Somebody who simply says, and whose greatest accomplishment is not being immoral, leaves a whole lot of shit on the other side of morality for them to be. You can be a non-immoral asshole. Absolutely you can. You know how I know? Anybody with a sibling knows. I'm not touching her. I'm not touching her. Yeah, that one. That is the classic dick move by every child with a sibling. I'm not touching, so I'm not wrong. Mom, he's bothering me. Yep, but he's not touching you, is he? He's not immoral. Yes, but mommy's a dick. So do something, right? That from childhood we have the non-immoral dick. And then we grow up, and the whole time I'm growing up, I'm thinking, you grow out of that shit. No, you don't. You find new and inventive ways to be a dick without being immoral. Jesus Christ. I can't believe the creativity put into that. But, there's that. So libertarianism has a hard time selling itself because it really is quite accepting of the asshole. Whereas the statist would say, there should be a law, right? There should be a law about being a dick. The libertarian says, no, let the dick be the dick, right? I should be able to turn down business. You can be gay, you can be black. I have to be able to turn down business for whatever reason. I can be as bigoted as I want. Libertarianism defends that. I defend that. I defend the right anyway. I don't necessarily defend the behavior, which is something people don't seem to understand, right? Is that yes, you are within your rights. If you behave within your rights, you're within your rights, and goddamn it, I will defend your right to do it. I will not defend the behavior itself as being anything good or acceptable, because as a member of society, I am an enforcer of culture. To the extent that it affects me or that I have an opinion about it, right? I'm not an enforcer in the sense that I go out and physically abuse people who violate social mores, but I do have an opinion about it, and people will ostracize, which is the claim of free market people, is that, well, we don't need violence. People will simply ostracize that kind of behavior, right? That's right. Dicks generally get ostracized. Much like language, society has a way of just regulating itself. So recently, a picture was shared on the internet by a fairly prominent libertarian of another prominent libertarian, and several prominent libertarians, I guess, prominent in the Facebook sense, I guess. But these people were involved in a situation where a nude picture was shared. And I think from a cultural standpoint, that's not acceptable behavior. Never said it was immoral, but it's certainly I'm not touching you dick move. It is. It's a total dick move. It's a dick move that one would expect from somebody who's hurt and broken, right? Been through a divorce. I know what hurt and broken looks like, and I know what hurt and broken behaves like. Now, sharing a picture, while certainly mortifying, is certainly not the extent to which somebody could be a dick in a breakup, but it is nonetheless a dick move. Okay? You can hate the behavior, still love the person, but in this case, the behavior was absolutely unacceptable, in my opinion. Of course, I'm not the only one who has that opinion. Right? Much like any situation, even on a foreign, international scale, we can look back and say, man, there were opportunities where we could have turned this shit around and we just didn't. Right? And then it blew up into this bullshit. Many of America's wars can be described that way. Right? The United States had several opportunities not to be involved in either of the two world wars, and goddamn it, they looked for ways to get in it. And they ignored the opportunities to get off. Every fucking off-ramp they had on that freeway to hell, they could have easily jumped off and said, nope, you know what, this is a bad course, we're getting the hell off. No. They accelerated right past those exits, straight into those wars. They wanted the war. For whatever reason, they wanted the war. Right? So they got it. And a person who's hurt in a breakup, and a person who feels really jaded, has similar blinders. Fuck this. That asshole. That bitch. Oh, fuck them. And then fuck them starts to manifest into ideas, right? And I get it. I do. And while I've been down that road, I understand that. I do. I mean, God knows there's a dark side of me that definitely wishes, fuck, is there any way I can not be involved in the utter demise of some people? And that's just unhealthy in general. So I usually catch myself and abandon that because it's not worth it. It's not worth it, not because the person, perhaps in my estimation, doesn't deserve it. It's not worth it because I'm not that person. I'm not a vindictive person. I can't be that person. Because being vindictive doesn't lead to any form of justice. Being vindictive can lead, has led to wars, has led to riots, has led to injustice, has led to lynch mobs, has led to the current penal codes and injustice system we have now. That's vindictive. Looking for punishment, not for equity. Right? Looking for punishment, not balance. Trying to get back at somebody. And if getting back at somebody, trying to be punitive about something, saying somebody deserved a negative thing, that is a form of malice. Where does it go from there? You know what I'm saying? Personal story, just to give you an idea. My divorce was not the worst thing. It's a divorce. Everybody goes through it. Right? It doesn't stand out as an exceptionally bad thing. It wasn't great, but it's not the worst thing. There was a moment where I was incredibly devastated. And people I expected to be supportive were not. And a stranger out of nowhere became my dearest friend. And I will say, her advice to this day stays with me because it left such an indelible impression. She agreed that I was wronged. There's no question about it, that the other party was absolutely in the wrong, that they were behaving like an absolute asshole, and they were. By most people's standards, the behavior was absolutely dickish. But nonetheless, she sat there and agreed, yes, as a friend, and I think this is a true friend. Yes, they were absolutely wrong. No question about it. Asshole move. You were wronged. You need to go home, cry about it, eat a tub of ice cream, set a timer. And when the timer goes off, you turn that shit off. You put on your big girl panties, and you get out and keep living. That's it. That's it. Nothing. Don't go out of your way to do anything to that person. That person has already set their path. They're on their own course. You're on your course. Eyes forward. Don't look back unless that's where you're going. That type of thing, you know? Indulge the hurt, right? But don't indulge where that hurtfulness will take you, was the general advice. And I'm glad she said what she did when she did. Because I think that was a changing moment in my life where truly I was better than not immoral. I knew at that point, by not taking action on the feelings that I was feeling and what I felt that person deserved, I don't live with the regret of doing something that I would regret, right? Something regrettable. Instead, I look back and I say, I'm glad I let that go. That was one of my greater triumphs, right? When I think about the people that I admire and respect the most, and I think about the character of those people, they don't dance on the line of whether something is immoral or not. They don't go anywhere near that fucking line. They don't go near the line. They stay the fuck away from the goddamn line altogether. They're not getting their shit off on a technicality. The integrity that they have is unshakable, even under the most adverse conditions, which is what the true test of character is. It's not the fair weather moments when everybody's getting along, holding hands and singing Kumbaya, cop blocking like the fucking Book of Acts in one accord. It's when the shit hits the fan, you don't like each other anymore, and you still manage to maintain a modicum of integrity, not because the person deserves it, but because that's the person you really are. The person you really are is the person with the flame under his ass. Who are you when there's a flame lit under your ass? Who are you? You don't have to tell me. Everyone's watching. We'll know in due time. Well, why is everybody scrutinizing you? Because you drew attention to yourself long time ago. And so people watch. You don't want people watching. Don't tell people, hey, I'm over here, dressed in a fucking Santa outfit, holding a fucking sign, protesting and activizing all over the fuck. You drew attention to yourself. Whether you like it or not, people don't know, and people don't give a shit that you want them to turn it off. They just keep watching now. You've set that in motion. Once you draw attention to yourself, it doesn't matter whether it's in a professional or activist capacity or not. They're watching all the time. But you asked for the attention and you got it. Okay? Now, a betrayal of trust is a betrayal of trust. That there was no contract is of no moment. Okay? The contract is of no moment. The point is there was an understanding, and that understanding was violated. Immoral? No, not yet. Haven't gotten there. I could definitely see the line from here, though. Tell you that. I could see the line. It's not off in the fucking distance. If somebody were to give you a decent shove, you'd be right the fuck over it. Okay? So, you're at the line on that one. But when human relationships are nothing more than a series of signed contracts, and nobody can count on the other to be a decent human being without it being binding, to me, this sounds a lot like the cop who says, I didn't break the law, did I? I was well within my protocol to do what I did. That's what it sounds like. Well, instead of needing a law to keep you in line, apparently you need a contract to keep you in line, which is sad, right? Fine. You need something to tell you not to be a dick, which is sad. It's telling. It's telling of a person's character when you need a law or a contract to tell you not to be a dick. What does that say about the parties involved? Now, I'm told there were threat levels, but I cannot see how a picture being shared mitigates physical threats. In fact, I can't help but wonder if that really exacerbates the situation and kind of irritates the situation. When I think about how cops behave, right, and their excuse for why they escalate rather than diffuse the situations that they walk into, I was in fear for my life. The famous phrase that gives them carte blanche permission to wreak havoc all over society. People have died under that phrase, right? I was in fear for my life. He said he would kick my ass. Therefore, you had to draw your gun. You did. The guy pinned on the floor, handcuffed, with 5 dudes on his back, that guy said he was going to kick your ass, and you believed that was an immediate threat to your life? That guy? Mm-hmm. All right. And I hear people say, and of course they use the phrasing, this person threatened violence against me. Really? Was the threat real? Like, were they at your fucking house? Is that what they did? Or did they just say on the internet they were going to kick your ass? Yeah, I guess you could do shit. I guess you could respond. I guess you could get ready. You could live in constant fear that this person or these people will come to your house. Okay? I imagine that's possible. But until there's any reason to believe that the person is going to do something, and unless the person shows up with intent, what the fuck does sharing a picture do? Other than, take a dig at the person, really. You can hate people and you can dislike people and you can not, you can think people are assholes, all of which are nothing. I mean, really benign things. But when the shit hits the fan, somebody upsets you, somebody insults you, or somebody makes some passing threat on the internet, right? Those things are a test of character. Now, under these circumstances, are you still the stand-up person? Or, or are you truly just an asshole who's not immoral? I mean, that's fine. Imagine you don't pose too much of a threat other than the fact that I could never engage with somebody who needs a contract not to be a dick, right? How do I trust somebody like that? Anybody who violated somebody's trust in the chain of custody of this photograph is as culpable as the other. Whether you share it with one member of the public or you share it with a million members of the public, it doesn't matter. You shared it. You were a participant and you were a party to this. I don't care who the names are. Thus far, all the names that I've heard, I don't kick it with them. I'm not too concerned. Certainly on my watch list, should I ever hear the name in person, right? But it's just understood that perhaps we can't, maybe that's just not the type of person I want to be associated with. This coming from somebody who was born with an extreme deficiency of tact and diplomacy. Okay. I lack all ability to be tactful. God knows I sit there and cripple myself trying to come up with ways to be diplomatic at work. Namely, I just don't respond to emails until I can. I answer the phone and I largely don't respond other than thank you and goodbye. Only because if I start talking, I might not be able to stop. Okay? But that's me. And I know this. And like I said, I'm just another asshole with an opinion. But what I say, what I do, is very different. The vast majority of statists who've seen me on Facebook think I'm a fucking cold-blooded bitch who cares not about the poor and who doesn't. Just because philosophically I can defend the right to not do things doesn't mean I don't do the good things. And just because I can philosophically defend being a dick doesn't mean I go out and be a dick. Being able to philosophically defend somebody's right does not mean that I would necessarily indulge dickish behavior. Simply because somebody does not have a moral claim over my actions or inactions doesn't mean that I don't look at the golden rule in two ways. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Do not do unto others as you would not have others do unto you. Right? It goes both ways. Libertarianism absolutely allows people to be dicks, and it offends the shit out of the social justice warriors. They wish people would keep their shit in check. I wish people would keep their shit in check. But they're not morally obligated to do so. But as a culture, much like language and culture, as a society of people, we are well within our rights to ostracize and disassociate. And sometimes, we treat individuals as a market. The market allows for this. That's right. And the market allows me to walk away from your shop too. The market allows me to post shit and reviews about you. Right? If I can do that with a business, I can do that about an individual. The market allows for a lot of shit. The market allows for others to respond in a dickish way. Being a dick opens the opportunity for other people to make the same decision you did. When presented with the opportunity, is being a dick a viable option? Well, be a dick to somebody and see. Run the experiment. And then we can all fuck each other over without ever being immoral. And then we can go try and sell it to a bunch of statists and say, see, you don't need laws. You can just be a dick. Or maybe we can demonstrate that we are capable of self-governance. Recognizing when we are dicks and calling ourselves out and apologizing for it. You cease to be a dick when you recognize it in yourself and apologize for it and own it. I don't have to apologize. That's true. You don't. But by not apologizing, it's not so much that the person you're apologizing to is offended, but the fact that people are watching. And now not only have you done this thing where you've shared a photograph, but you also now defend the act. And so you continue to paint the picture of your character in front of everyone as the type of person you are under pressure. For better or for worse, the market allows you to not be to simply walk freely as you behave in a non-immoral way, and the market allows for a whole lot of other social repercussions to spin. So I imagine we can continue with the tacky behavior, or maybe we just call it a day and say, you know, I shouldn't have done it. Kind of a shitty thing to do. Would have thought I'm not 15. Right? The ball didn't just drop. I should have been I could have been better about it. And yes, indeed, there is a certain amount of responsibility for anybody who would trust somebody with a picture on the internet. Yeah, it was not the smartest move anymore. It wasn't any more smart than me leaving my doors unlocked and coming back to somebody having been through my house. It wasn't a smart move, but it wasn't asking for it. All right. Well, think on it. Have a good week. We'll catch you next time. Bye.